Well, Pope Francis is calling for people to dial back on the indulgence this Christmas holiday, a time that's become marked with overconsumption, he says, and excess. The Pope taking time out of his celebrations today to, quote, say this: in a society so often intoxicated by consumerism and hedonism, wealth and extravagance, appearances and narcissism, Jesus calls us to act soberly. Father Jonathan Morris joins us now, Fox News contributor. You mean Christmas isn't just about eggnog and presents?
Those are good things, too, though.
Oh, okay.
I think he's talking about excess. And I think whether you're a Christian or not, whether you're Catholic or not, I think the words of Pope Francis in this case
hard to argue with
true,
him,
right? But, you know, another thing he said that I think people are not paying attention to as much is he called the international community to act to help the Christians in Syria, in the Middle East. And he said that a year ago. You know, a lot of politicians...
Yeah, we talked about it a year ago. Are you surprised by sort of how political this Pope is becoming and speaking out in these
No. Popes do that all the time. When there's total tragedy, and I would say even an attempt to extinguish Christians in the Middle East and other places, including in Africa, we need people, not just popes, but anybody with a moral voice to stand up and say that's not going to happen. You know, our President Obama, and others, to be fair, and other political leaders love to quote Pope Francis. They love to be next to him. But a year ago, Pope Francis was calling the international community to stop ISIS and to use force, if necessary, to stop ISIS. I don't see, and I hope they begin to quote what Pope Francis said today about what's going on in these tragic situations.
It's interesting you say that, because when ISIS executed a bunch of Christians, Egyptian Christians in Libya, the president caught a lot of flack for his statement not talking about the fact that these were Christians being persecuted for their beliefs. In the latest Christmas message from the president, we have a quote here, now talks directly about persecution because of his Christian faith. In some areas of the Middle East where church bells have rung for centuries on Christmas Day, this year they will be silent. This silence bears tragic witness to the brutal atrocities committed against these communities by ISIL. I guess what you're saying, though, is that these kinds of words need to be followed by the actions Pope Francis is asking for.
Yes, and I'm very happy the president is saying this, that there is a genocide of Christians going on, not only in the Middle East, but especially in the Middle East. And Christians really being eradicated. As you know, you've worked in the Middle East for a long time, in Israel. And but yes, then there has to be action. And it's not the Pope's job to tell President Obama what strategy to carry out. But the international community has to make a decision. Are we going to stop ISIS, or are we going to talk about it? And this is good talk from the president, recognizing the reality, but we also need action, and that's the role of a politician.
Do you feel the American public, and for that matter, your parishioners who you'll celebrate Mass for, and you did for Midnight Mass, do you feel that they really understand what Christians in dozens, if not 100+ countries around the world go through simply because they identify themselves as Christians? Some
do, and most don't, and that's understandable. It's always going to be like that. There's going to be people who follow the news and don't, but that's why we elect people. That's why on this Christmas Day, when we're celebrating the fact that God would become man, according to Christian theology, that God would become man to be with us and to get involved in our messiness, to give us a chance for redemption, well, then we also have to, each and every one of us, according to our roles, and politicians and world leaders especially, need to take responsibility to say, if there's a genocide, let's not talk about it, let's stop it.
Well, there was said after the Holocaust, never again. We'll have to wonder if people look back and wonder if we upheld our end of the bargain on that. A very Merry Christmas to you, Father Jonathan, and to your mother, who you're off to go see. Safe travels. Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you very much.
All the best.